All right, so as the shutdown enters day 2 now, the crisis is raising some new questions about the size of our government because 800,000 federal workers have been furloughed as part of this shutdown. That's just part of the 3 million people that make up the federal workforce. So for a little context here, the most populated city in the country is right here in New York City with just over 8 million people. Los Angeles is second with 4 million people. And if the federal workforce were a city, it would rank third, with nearly 3 million people in the federal civilian workforce. So let's talk about this. Alan Colmes is host of The Alan Colmes Show, and Mary Catherine Ham, editor-at-large of HotAir.com, both Fox News contributors. Good to have you both here. And you know, Alan, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're going to say, oh, this is just an opportunity to say that the government's too big.
Yes. All right. See ya. Thanks for doing
however, it's an opportunity to say that maybe the government's too big, because you look at this and you look at, how we're doing things. And I think about when the president was did the State of the Union address years ago. And he said, do you realize that we have 3 agencies that handle salmon? You've got the upstream salmon agency, the downstream salmon agency. And he said, we need to trim this government. We got to trim it. And I'm thinking, I don't know, but I'm betting all 3 agencies are still in place.
Well, yeah, you could say, look, are there any jobs that could be cut? Sure. I mean, is there any fat anywhere in the public arena? Of course. But simply to say, well, 800,000 jobs, that sounds like a lot of people. Therefore, we must be able to cut it. And we're surviving okay now, right, with the government shutdown. Just because the shutdown isn't affecting one particular person personally doesn't mean that those jobs are not necessary. And by the way, Richard Posner at the University of Chicago did a study on this and found out that we about 16% of our populations in the federal workforce, compared to Sweden at the high end, about 34%. And that does not affect the economic well-being of the country in terms of per capita income. So,
So we've got a ways to go. We can get all the way up to 34%,
we're a long way from Sweden
before we look anything like Sweden.
A long way.
I think the problem for Democrats, and I do think that there's a serious political danger for Republicans in the shutdown continuing, but the problem for Democrats and a liability for liberals is if you are making the argument all the time that every single cent and every single job is essential, which ends up being the argument a lot of times from congressional Democrats, that when we end up in a situation like this, people start learning, oh, we employ a bunch of art historians, or we employ a bunch of environmental engineers that I didn't know about, and they start wondering, hey, is this really necessary? And I think that's a little bit what happened with sequestration. The second liability, I think, is when the administration, if they start making calls that rub people the wrong way, like this World War II memorial issue where someone was sent out to do extra work to shut it down, people start going, wait, are these jerks trying to hurt us on purpose? Yeah. And that's a problem.
I mean, how dumb do they think we are, Alan? I mean, when you shut down stuff, they always pick the White House tour. They pick the World War II memorial because they know that it's like sticking a knife in it. Oh, that's going to hurt. Wait till they get there and find out that's closed.
When you say this happened last time. There was a sequestration, and when sequestration first started, and it was actually the Secret Service and security personnel who decided the White House tour had to be shut down. It wasn't some cavalier decision made by the president. This has to do with security issues. So there's often a reason, or maybe sometimes unexplained, as to what is shut down and why.
We go back to the IRS line dancing, and you look at the, Jeff Neely in the bathtub, and, that led to, we would hope, reining in a little bit some of this spending. We would
no
hope.
line dancing. Can't have line dancing among federal employees.
Seriously, because Mary Catherine, just touched on something very significant here. Because what it goes back to is this discussion of not one dime. We are not cutting one dime. Right. Every single dime, it goes to something that is meaningful.
Martha, not just one dime, not just not cutting one dime, but we can't afford to not grow as much as we planned to. That's how Washington works. Is we've got these huge inflations of spending on the books, and we can't afford to even cut back from those. And that to me is just a way that Washington works that has nothing to do with the way real people work. And then when you have something like this or sequestration, people go, wait a second, they don't work like we do, and that's a problem.
And we've been told with sequestration, Alan, that it was going to, be devastating, that it was going to be so horrible, and that the mean Republicans had forced it to happen. Now we're being told basically the same thing with this, and a lot of people are saying, gee, it doesn't feel that different. And that is not the people who are furloughed, I should point out.
It's a matter of feeling, though, is one thing. For example, in a Wall Street Journal story this morning, they quote somebody from the Citizens Against Government Waste, which, of course, has a long-term agenda of cutting people in government. and the person says, well, it's just my intuitive feeling that there are too many people. If you actually, you need some data to really support that, and simply to say, well, 800,000, that's a lot of people. That's the size of the third largest city. Maybe with a little drilling down and understanding exactly what these people do, we can come up with a better idea of who could be cut or what could be cut, if at all. But let's get some data on that.
But do you concede that there are things that could be trimmed?
I said at the very beginning. My first statement was, I'm not saying
that's
that.
What we're saying.
I think unfortunately
you can cut one dime here, there, and everywhere.
And unfortunately, often the conversation becomes, well, you just want to hurt women and children if you want to cut one dime. And we're not actually having that discussion with data. It's being demagogued often by Democrats. And
but
that's
it's also being demagogued on the right. Oh, too many people, 800,000, that's a lot of people. Let's get rid of some of them. That's demagoguery as well.
And you
Alan just wants it at New York City size, and I would like it at like Charlotte, North Carolina size.
Okay, well, that's a beautiful town, Charlotte.
It sure is. We all like Charlotte. We spend a lot of time there. Mary Catherine, Alan, thanks so much, you guys.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
So if you